Psalm 95. Psalm 95, verse number 6 and 7. Let me find that for you. Psalm 95, verse 6 and 7. It says here an act, the title is called A Call to Worship and Obedience. It says, "Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand." Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6. We're familiar with this story. Daniel, of course, ends up in the den of lions because he refused to stop praying to God. But it says that even after he found out that there was a rule about not praying to God, it says in Daniel chapter 6 and verse number 10, it says, "Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room with his windows open towards Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, and was as was his custom since the early days." And then we have another example in Acts chapter 6. Acts chapter 6, verse number, right at the end there of Acts chapter 7, sorry, verse number 60. As Stephen is dying, the Bible tells us that then he knelt down and cried with a loud voice, "Lord, do not charge them with this sin." And when he had said this, he fell down, he fell asleep. And there's a few others, but the last one I really want to read is in Luke 22. Luke 22, verse 41. Jesus himself, the Bible tells us in verse 41, says here that coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives. So Jesus went up to the Mount of Olives, and he was, as he was accustomed, and his disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, pray that you do not enter into temptation." And when he had withdrawn from them a stone's throw, he knelt down and prayed, saying, "Father, if it is your will, take this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." We can see example over and over about kneeling to pray. And I will tell you that I do a lot of prayer in driving in my car and sitting at the dining room table like this or doing whatever. It's been a while since I've knelt down to pray, and I got to ask myself about if I'm missing something here. And I have to ask myself if the physical act of humility changes the way we pray.